My wine passion probably came from since I was a kid. I grew up in this house where we always made wine. Actually, we've always been farming, and actually I raised up just upstairs the winery, so I was always into the wine business, and that's why probably my passion was so strong. I remember when I was a kid, I was looking through the window during the harvest time, maybe with the reds, that it's already autumn, so it's dark outside. They were working till late, and I remember before going to sleep, just looking at them through the window, and I was like, wow, it's so late and they're still working, and they are smiling, so they seem to be happy and satisfied about what they are doing. So I was always, why? And so while I grew up, I always tried to make more questions and understand what wine was, because I was really kid, so really young, so I couldn't know what wine was and the grapes and all the process. So I started asking, and also when I was 14, that I had to choose the school, I decided to go to the winemaking school. And for a certain point of view, I was like feeling the pressure, but it was a good pressure, that kind of pressure that makes you do better. I'm Giovanni Correggia, and I'm a wine producer from Roero, Piedmont. Our family always did farming since ever, and farming was like animal, mainly cows, chicken, rabbits, some vegetable, especially the fruit. The peaches are really famous from Canale, which is my village, because we have a particular tasty breed of peaches, which is really famous. And then there was some wine, but the wine at that time was a bit different than today. In 1985, my dad decided to change everything, the philosophy, so he focused mainly on wines, but those wines had to be high quality wine. He'd been around with important names like Roberto Verso, Agli Altare, and Giorgio Rivetti from La Spinetta. They used to be teachers for him, because they were making red wine since a long time. My dad was new. And so he was hanging with them around. He learned how to make red wines, but making red wines in a Roero region now it seems to be something normal, but it used to be a new thing, because years ago making high quality red wines in Roero was a big deal, because everybody thought that good wines were mainly white wine, the grape Auvernais, which is still really popular today, but it's white. So it was the one who put Roero wines on the map, because it was the one trying to make seriously good stuff, important red wines from Roero. So he hung out with these guys. He was part of the Barolo Boys. That was this really new movement between the 80s and the 90s, even though we never made Barolo. And he was the outsider, so he was always going with them and tasting wine together, because yeah, it's Barolo, but it's still Nebbiolo grape, so they were like talking the same language. So sometimes the farming mentality could be a little bit closed and not really open-minded. So when you do something new, and something new is a big change, could be a trouble. So the first person that my dad has to deal with was my grandma, because it was always like, what are you doing? Why you want to make red wines in this area? You don't want to keep going with farming and animals and just some easier wine, So he was under pressure, under big pressure. So it's always nice. I always tell this story. That is first time he bought a barrel. He had to ship this barrel to his friend's house. Then he went there, he got some wine, he tried to get this barrel dirt from outside, and then he brought it home, and he told to my grandma, so her mom, that it wasn't new, so it was used. That means it's not expensive, so don't worry, he didn't spend so much money to buy this barrel, but actually he spent, because it was a new one, and new barrels are always expensive. So he had to lie, but because he was sure about this. Every year, still today, we always do what we call the green harvest or bunch thinning, which is a process that we do in July and August. We go in the vineyards and we always cut some grape. That's why green harvest, because they are still green. Part of them are still green, and we just leave them on the floor in order to have a lower yield, a lower quantity of grape per vine, and that means higher quality because there's more concentration, more sugar, more structure. So at that time, doing the green harvest or bunch thinning, it was a big deal because in a farmer mentality, waste some fruits that it seems to be like a present from above, the present from God, was almost a blasphemy. It was a really big deal. And so he was doing this process on Sunday when nobody was around, and then at the end of the day he just dig a hole, he put the grape there, he buried there under the dirt like nobody could see it, and so he was going home happy, but he was going home on Sunday, so always working. And so at the beginning was fun because people start to say, your dad is crazy, your son, they were talking to my grandma and they would say, your son is crazy. And you know, every village has like the fool of the village. So for a few years, for a small period, he was the fool of the village because he was doing something apparently crazy. After a while, first tourists came at the winery, the first American. That was a really big deal when someone talking in English coming from overseas came here. So that meant a lot, and finally from the fool of the village he became probably the wiser one, and that was a big change. And it worked because we're still here today making wine and talking about it with a smile on our face, because again now it seems fun, but the pressure on him was really big at that time. Unfortunately, my dad passed away in 2001 for an incident with a tractor. So while he was working in the vineyards, he was really young because he was 39, I was 9, my sister was 7. So my mom at that time took over the winery, and she kept going the winery with a good stuff that we still have today, of course, but she was in charge, and actually she's still in charge because Italian moms are always like a bit bossy, and you know, Italian moms is a big deal. So sometimes it's sad because I didn't really have the chance to know my dad, especially for the working part. So all I know about him, especially about winemaking and wine style, the wines that he loved, is because someone told me. I work with my sister Brigitta. When she works at the winery, she's really good with customers because she's able to create a really deep relationship with people. She creates a good energy and good vibes. So people, they always remember her because she always tells stories about the winery, tells stories about herself as well, really on the emotional side. And she's really good when she does like wine dinner or just visit with people. I work with my mom, Ornella. She is officially the boss of the winery. She's really a strong woman. I really appreciate the fact that she took over the winery when my dad passed away in 2001. She's able to create a good relationship with the staff, with customers as well. She's really kind, and she's good because sometimes she's able to, actually anytime, she always say what she really thinks, but in a kind and a gentle way that you cannot say she was unpolite, but she was perfect. But at the same time, she told you what she was thinking, like not hiding anything. So she's really direct in a good manner. My mom and I have a really strong relationship, and that creates a really good harmony while we're working. And I'm sure that this harmony is really good in order to make a higher quality wine. Something I really always like to underline is that my mom always pushed me to do like a normal classic kind of scientific lyceum, probably because she was scared that one day I could point my finger at her and say, you pushed me to do winemaking and something. But I was stubborn, and so I said, no, I want to do winemaking right now, and that's what I did. And so I'm so happy at the moment for my choice. So the quality of the wine is always the main focus of our winery. I cannot talk to people about our wines if I'm not 100% happy about the quality. We are organic, we are biological since officially 2014. We are still focused more on the red wines than white wines, so we're still following the philosophy of my dad, and I'm really into it. I love it. And being in a region like Roero, which is an appellation a little bit less known than Barolo and Barbaresco, and with less number of bottles, less producer, could be a benefit, because when you go abroad, when you travel and you talk about this area, it's always something new, and people like new things, like they like discover new things. When people are coming here, the tasting the wine is just a part of the visit, because we all spend so much time in order to explain people where we are. So the first stop is always in front of a good map, where we can show people where Roero is, where Canale, our village, is, all our vineyards, and how close we are to Barolo and Barbaresco. But at the same time, the quality of the wine is really high in both regions, but the style is really different. So we can taste Roero wines and really recognize this wine is a wine from Roero, because the soil is different, rich in seashells and fossils, a lot of minerality that really influence the wine. Sometimes I think people at the restaurant, they could maybe get a glass of your wine, a bottle of your wine, they could love it or not, that's personal, but at the end of the day, at the end of the dinner or the lunch, it's gonna be just a glass of wine. If people have the chance to come here, they always get out of this winery happier, with a good memory. They really understand why the wines taste like this, what is the philosophy and our thinking behind the wine they are tasting.